Hi and welcome back. Okay, we're going to go over some Fume FX stuff now. So what I'm going to do is create a few things I'm going to need. I'm going to need this box. I'm going to need this box, and I'm going to make a particle system, just a simple one. So I'll just use particle flow. Put myself a PF source just here, and using angle snap, I'll just turn it like that. Okay, and drag it up, and there we have one particle flow source. Now, what I'm going to do in this scene is just add some gravity. Then I'm going to add, let me see, a couple of deflectors. Just use 1, 2, and I'm going to apply these U deflectors. So let's see, I'm going to pick this object for that one. I'm going to apply this object for that one. Alright, dead easy. Actually, I'll just attach the two objects together. It's probably going to be easier. Then I don't need this one. I just need this one. Alright, now what I want to do is just animate this. So I'm going to go to my auto key, and I don't know, I'll go to frame 20 and I'll do this. And I'll go to frame 42 and do this. And then I'll do it again coming back like this. Okay, and that gives us a bit of a spray like so. Okay, now I'm going to hit 6, change its birth, make it stop at 80, give it a amount of about, I don't know, 1000 for the moment. Speed will be fine, rotation's fine, shape, I just want vertexes. And we're going to use a collision. Just drop that in the bottom. And just add that. I'm going to stick a force in, because it always helps if you've got a bit of gravity. Add this in. Okay. I want to turn off auto key. We don't really need it on now. Okay, so as you can see, the particles are all springing out and bouncing off everything at the moment. So what I need to do is reduce the effect of gravity a bit, so it'll actually hit the wall first. So it's only curving down a bit. When it collides, we'll make it, I don't know, stop. Actually, no, we won't make it stop, but we'll make this not bounce it. So it'll just stick there and then slowly drop off. See, like that. And we'll give it some friction so it slows right the hell down. Okay. So there we go. Let's have a look at that in real time. Splat. Perfect. Okay, so it's hitting the wall with its particles. What we're going to do next, now that we've done this simple thing, is we're going to put some Fume FX into our scene. So we know where our particles are going to be traveling. You see this area here, and we only need calculations done in this area. The larger the area the calculations are carried out on, the more calculations are needed, the slower it becomes. So Fume FX, and we're just going to gate in this area here. So click it, drag it, and that's about as much as we're going to need. Maybe a little bit higher for the smoke, but we'll see. Okay, next. We need a way of telling Fume FX that the particles we're using we want actually inside the Fume FX simulation. So in the helper we go down to Fume FX, particle source, click and drag. There we go. And we're going to pick our particle system with this. Now we're also going to need a light on this, otherwise it's not going to render very well. So let's make ourselves a direct. So target direct. Just bring this up. And I'll change the hotspot and fall off on it. There we go. And make sure that shadows are on. Right, we now have a lighting system. Okay, so let's select our Fume FX, okay? And here's our 4 little icons at the top that are the important ones for us. And that's Open Output Preview, which we'll do in a minute, Open the UI, Preferences, and About. So let's open the user interface. Here it is. Now if I do a quick render, I'll hit F10 first actually. If I do a quick render, you'll see that, you know, we've just got a basic scene, some basic shadows, nothing exciting going on yet. So let's change that. So what I'm going to do now is, well, check our output. Start frame 0, end frame 100. So that's the entire simulation. Under Objects and Source, we're going to add, and we add this, which is our particle system. You know, our particle link to our particle system. In Illumination, we're going to add our direct light. Okay, so if I render it now, still nothing. Why not? Well, we haven't done any simulation yet, okay? We've got all the basic parameters. These are defaults turned on. So if I open my preview window, which is here, just pull this open. I'm now going to go to General, and I'm going to make an output path, which in my case is going to be in my H directory. Here we go. Let's change the name on this. There we are. So now it's going to save each of the frames individually for its calculations in here. You can also change the quality. If you want it 4 or whatever, go ahead. Now if you click outside of it, it'll all vanish. That's okay. Just select the user interface again and it's back. Okay, we're going to do a quick start simulation just to see what it does. If I move this frame to here, you can see it's now generating fire based on the particles. And they're all sticking against that wall. In turn, they're creating smoke, which is kind of wisping and billowing. So we have not a bad simulation so far. Notice how they're all kind of sticking to the wall and will eventually burn out. Now if you want to see how that looks in real time, just click play, and it'll actually play it in your preview window. Notice it doesn't render your geometry. If you want to see how it looks in a render, just hit F9. And there you can see it, okay? Now at the moment our flames are quite small, so the scale could probably do with being ramped up just a tiny bit. So if we increase our radius perhaps to 2. Okay, now we'll have to resimulate it, but see what happens. So I think you can see what a difference just increasing the radius to 2 has made. I mean, these are pretty much just the default parameters as well for Fume FX, and already we're getting some really nice effects on this. I mean, you may remember with the Dreadnought, I've shown you how to do the particles, you know, the old-fashioned hard way. And we've used Afterburn to give it a bit of volume. But doing it this way, well, this is actually a lot easier, to be honest, and will take a lot less time. Let's look at anything else we can write. Well, do you want to change the velocity of the particles coming out? Not especially. You can change the variation a bit if you want more or less chaos, just to kind of show you the difference there. Okay, that's changing the chaos on it really to about 5, which makes it a lot more ordered. I tend to keep mine between about 7.5 on the variation and about, I don't know, 15. So, you know, maybe if you want to change it to 11.5, that'll give us a big variation in the radius sizes. That means the fire will break apart slightly more and you'll get this rippling kind of fire effect here. At the minute you'll notice as well doing the entire simulation isn't taking us long, which is good. Now once we've got our smoke up, we can start messing around with some of the parameters. So I'm going to let the simulation finish completely until we get all the way over to frame 100. And then we can do things like we can change the temperature of the fire and that the flame burns at and things like that. So at the moment the temperature of our particles is 300 degrees with a variation of 10 degrees. So what happens if we drop that down to 100? As you can see, we get a lot less fire and we get a lot more smoke. Now, if we go to our simulation here, our ignition temperature is 100 degrees, so it's barely catching fire here. If we were to change our ignition temperature to 50 degrees, as you can see, it's all catching fire again, although it's not really producing quite as much smoke as it did before. Okay, well, hold that thought. What would happen then if we were to change our ignition temperature on this to 300 degrees? Well, firstly, you'll notice we're just getting smoke. We've suddenly got a smoke cannon, because it's not hot enough to catch fire, but it's hot enough to produce steam. Okay, well, let's change that in the object source again. So we've got a temperature of 100. Let's say what? Give it a temperature of 800. And as you see now, it's catching fire again. We've got steam, and because of the way the temperature's going, the fire's flickering and really rising up here at the top, which makes it look a lot hotter, much more flamey, and very pretty. So obviously, the hotter the temperature of your particles compared to the burning temperature of your fuel, okay, the more action and reaction you're going to get at the top here. Okay, go down to our simulation again. Now here we have our smoke, and we can change things like its dissipation strength, its diffusion, and so on. As you can see, so if I change its dissipation strength here to maybe 1 instead of 3, which it was at, just quickly slide through this so you can see what it was. And now do it. As you see, it doesn't dissipate quite as much, so we're still getting this very white, kind of almost cigarette smoke-like swirling going on here. It's taking a lot longer for the smoke to dissipate. Now I want the smoke to dissipate fairly rapidly, so let's increase this back up to around about 3 again, maybe even 3.5, and run our simulation again. There. And as you can see, our smoke's breaking up and basically going away fairly fast. It's burning out pretty quickly. Is there nothing not to love about FumeFX? And of course you'll notice that where the fuel's gathered, it's still on fire, it's still burning. We can also change the gravity. If we mess around with the gravity, you'll find that our flames tend to kind of rise up and flicker a little bit more. So if I change that to 0.75 and watch the top of the flames, you'll see they're rearing up a lot more than they were. The flames are flickering through itself. It's given the impression really that you've got some nice warm air in there as well, which would help. And we can make this a slightly dirtier coloured fire if you want. So if you go down to rendering, we can change the colour on this. If you notice, we can actually do that as well here inside the rendering dialog, which means that we can see how it affects it in real time. So we can make it incandescent bright if we want to, or we can make it really dirty and ruddy if we want to. So for example, at 0.21, you'll see that we have this really dark, deep, fuely fire going on, which is very nice. Whereas if we go all the way up to here, we have a really hot fire. Now we have a high temperature, so let's put it at about 3.25. Now if you want to, you can drop down the opacity a bit, which will make your fire more see-through. That's entirely up to you. Remember that, you might want to be able to see the detail of the flame more. Or you can just go hog wild and make it completely just a white blur like this. It depends on how hot you want your flame to look. I'm going to want mine probably around about 0.55. That way we can see some definition in the flame, but we can also see that it's real hot. Okay, what about smoke then? We've got a low threshold and a high threshold. And you can mess about with both those. So if you look, we can raise the low threshold so that smoke's not going to get produced for a little while. Or we can reduce the high threshold. Now I'm going to keep the high threshold pretty much where it was, which was about 30. Just take that back up to there. I could have just typed it in, but you know. And I'm going to move the low threshold just a little bit to about 0.35. There we are. Because I don't want too much smoke generated at first, because I want it to be burning itself. Now we can change the smoke colour if you want to. If I'd right click and go into keyless mode, this means I can just change the smoke value like this without having to put gradients in. There we go, I'll put this grey on. And we can cast and receive shadows with our smoke if you'd like. I shall reduce the low threshold a bit more. About 0.01. Sorry, 0.1. There we go. Okay, let's do another simulation. And there we see now our smoke's being produced. We've got our really hot fire. But we can see the flame detail underneath. There we go. And now if I just pull back to here, I'll just render that. There we go, you can see the way the fire's all pooling and collecting. I just come around a little bit here. Like that. And of course by the time we get to frame 80, then frame 95, and then frame 100. Okay, and that's how we use Fume FX just to make ourselves a nice simple fire scene that we can animate.